The 2025 NFL season is behind us. The Seattle Seahawks took down the New England Patriots 29-13 in a pretty much dominant Super Bowl. Nothing too much to write about. Sam Darnold looked like Sam Darnold at some points, and then, looked like he was seeing ghosts out there at other points. But Kenneth Walker is the Super Bowl MVP. I love to see. I think that just overall, the New England Patriots just couldn't get it done on offense. Drake May did not look great, but he's a second-year player. You can't expect too much from a guy like him. Not everyone's going to be like Patrick Mahomes and win it in their second or third year. But as the season is behind us now, it's time to talk about a couple new things for the NFL offseason. But one of the most important things in the NFL offseason that I love to talk about is NFL free agency. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about one free agent that every team should be going after, whether it be a solid player to help a position or just a really good player that just needs to find a new home. I think that each of these players will fit really well into the system that they found. You can agree or disagree on what you think, but this is my list, and this is what we're going to go for today. So we're going to start off with the Arizona Cardinals here, as they're going to be going with Jamel Dean as probably one of their top free agent fits. You look at a guy like Dean, who had 5 total turnovers in the 2025 season. He played well for his age. He's 29. But really that's more in the sense of he is a reliable veteran who's going to be able to not only be a solid player for you and be your solid cornerback one in reference to Arizona, but he's also going to be a guy who can teach. Will Johnson and Denzel Burke were both picks that you guys made last season, both of whom had both good plays and bad plays. Having a guy like Jamel Dean in there who's been around the league, who's been a solid player for the past 3 or 4 years, will really help in developing those guys as well. Obviously won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers back in 2021. And you look at his stats, like he played relatively well for only playing 14 games. So I think adding a guy like Jamel Dean into your system to not only teach those guys, but be your reliable cornerback one, I think is going to be the best option going forward for Arizona. Moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, where they're going with DJ Reader. It's not the flashiest pick ever, but it's going to be the pick that really makes the most sense. Atlanta was really bad when it came to run defense, and when DJ Reader was on the field for the Detroit Lions, he did play 17 games. He made an impact when it came to the run. He's more or less been a reliable nose tackle in the league. As you can see, he was a second-team All-Pro in 2019 per PFF. So I think having Reader within that defensive line alongside Jalen Walker, Arnold Ebiketie, maybe James Pierce Jr., we don't really know what's going on with that whole situation. But adding a guy like Reader who can really provide a lot of good interior dominance, I think is the best person going forward to really elevate your defense to a new level. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to try to go after Elijah Vera Tucker, who didn't play in 2025. So automatically that's a little bit of a question mark for whether you want to pursue a guy like that. But I think generating and having a player like Elijah Vera Tucker be on that offensive line, maybe a replacement for Daniel Falele at the right guard position, he could really be a solid run blocker and a solid pass blocker as well. He's consistent when he is on the field. As I mentioned earlier, he did not play in 2025. So I'm listing off some of his 2024 stats. It's going to be 915 snaps, which accounted for 97% of the total offensive snaps for the New York Jets in 2024. He was an all-rookie in 2021. And so he's still younger. He's still 26, but he has the build and the frame to be a solid guard. But he also, coming out of the draft, was considered a tackle. So you could move him to both left or right tackle, where he's had spots at both of those in this league. Ronnie Stanley's getting older in age. I think adding a guy in there who can not only learn from the older people in that room, but also just be a solid right guard and be able to block for Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Vera Tucker is one of those guys who can really make a force without really having his name be said all the time. Of course, my Buffalo Bills are up next, and they're going to be going with Alec Pierce. Now, there are a lot of different wide receivers that are free agents this season. George Pickens, who just recently got the franchise tag, is off the board. But I think Alec Pierce really fits a piece of the puzzle that Buffalo has needed the past 2 seasons. So I'll give you an example. Khalil Shakir is a slot receiver through and through. We've played him at the slot. We've played him between the hashes for most of the time that he's been in Buffalo. Keon Coleman, if we develop him, he could be a really solid X receiver. That just comes down to development. Alec Pierce fits the mold of a solid deep threat receiver who could really pair well with a talented quarterback like Josh Allen, who hasn't done it recently, but loves to air the ball out. As you can see, that bottom stat is very important when it comes to Pierce. 21.3 yards per catch. He was the yards per catch leader in 2024 and 2025. That really says a lot about what kind of receiver you're getting from Alec Pierce. He is a deep threat receiver who will make the big play if his number is called. Buffalo doesn't really have that. You could look at a guy like Josh Palmer as that guy, but he really hasn't shown up when he's been on the field. Alec Pierce provides a new spark to the offense that I really would love to see with both Josh Allen and Alec Pierce on the field at the same time. Next up for the Carolina Panthers, they need help on the pass rush. Jalen Phillips from the Philadelphia Eagles does provide pass rush when you need him to. Coming from Miami last season, he did not play well when he was Miami. Got traded midseason to Philadelphia, and that's where he really shined. A good majority of his stats came from Philadelphia when he played there as an outside linebacker. He played all 17 games, but when he was on the field, he was a special type of player. 5 sacks, 4 passes defended from an outside linebacker is very impressive. But again, similarly to a guy like Jamel Dean, a guy like DJ Reader, you have young people within the Carolina Panthers pass rushing defense that I think could use a lot of the experience that Jalen Phillips has had to really elevate themselves as well. Princely Oman from Ole Miss was a rookie last season. You have a guy like Nick Gordon out of Texas A&M, both of whom were pass rushing it for Carolina last season. Didn't have too much production, didn't really hear their name be called a whole lot, but they add a guy like Jalen Phillips who fits the mold of a really solid pass rusher in this league, a lean 6'5", 266, still a young player. I think adding him into this Carolina Panthers room is going to be really crucial to what the Panthers are going to be looking like in 2026. Another not so flashy pick is going to be the Chicago Bears up. They're going to be taking Shelby Harris here. Shelby Harris, despite his age, still is pretty consistent when it comes to playing. All 17 games played in 2025. But the biggest factor that I love to see from Shelby Harris's game is his ability to go up with his hands and block the ball. He's done it before in Denver and did it in Cleveland as well. 4 passes defended from Shelby Harris in 2025. That's pretty impressive from an interior defensive lineman. But Grady Jarrett is still there. He's going to be getting older. You still have guys like Gervon Dexter, who's still a young player in this league. The defensive line could just use help in general. Montez Sweat just needs a running mate on that other side of the ball there. But I think adding a guy like Shelby Harris, who is purely a defensive tackle, could really elevate not only your running game, but your passing game as well on the defensive side. But helping Chicago is really, on the defensive side, is really something that they might have needed going into this season. But I think overall, Shelby Harris is going to be the move going forward in Chicago. Not going to be a long-term decision, but somebody who can get his hands up and really stop the ball from reaching any further than the line of scrimmage. Next up, I really am a fan of this pick here for the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that really needs cornerback and safety, just defensive back in general. Cameron Curl out of LA Rams, formerly a Washington Commander. This was a guy who, when I was doing research for this video, I didn't realize the stats that he really had before this season. A really good year for Cam Curl. 122 total tackles, which is very impressive for a box safety. 2 interceptions, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 5 passes defended. Curl was one of those bright spots on the LA Rams defense, amidst a bunch of other bright spots that either showed up or just played out of their mind. Nate Landman comes to mind. A guy like Quentin Lake comes to mind. But Cameron Curl, a second-team All-Pro in 2022 per PFF, really just is going to be a guy who can really provide a big spark for Cincinnati. Let's say they pair him up with a guy like Caleb Downs in the NFL draft. That secondary just got revamped so quickly. And then the reliability of Curl here, 17 games played. He's also very physical as a player. You know, he's a do-it-all guy. He really just will play box safety. And he really fits that Bengals defense where it's hard hitting and they value disguises and just interchangeable DB roles. Cam Taylor-Britt, another one who we'll be talking about later. Each of these guys kind of fit the mold of what Cincinnati's looking for. So Cameron Curl, you very well could be a Cincinnati Bengal. So this one I had to change amidst the George Pickens franchise tagging. Still could be a tradable person in the offseason, but Wan'Dale Robinson is the next man up for Cleveland. I wouldn't prefer his size, 5'8", 185, but at the end of the day, it doesn't seem to matter too much with a guy like Robinson, who I would assume has pretty much been doubted for his size all of his career. The first time he hit 1,000 yards, the mids came to the Malik Neighbors injury. Would he have gotten 1,000 if Malik Neighbors didn't get hurt? I don't know. But I mean, overall, Wan'Dale Robinson, despite his size, is really just a very quick player. He's got strong hands, and just his ability to operate in the slot and out wide is really something that I look for with Cleveland receivers. They have a lot of the similar players like Malachi Corley, like Isaiah Bond, who are your like jet sweep, gadget type players. Jerry Jeudy, I love seeing him go to a different team in 2024 and ball out. 2025 was a little bit different. I didn't really see that a whole lot when it came to Jeudy in 2025. So maybe adding a running mate with Jeudy can really provide separation for either Robinson or Jeudy. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think, is probably going to be one of the better players off the board, especially coming off a really, really strong 2025. Robinson to the Brown might not be the most ideal pick, but it might be the pick that gets him a couple more wins on the tally. And as I mentioned before with Cameron Curl, Cam Taylor-Britt is up next for the Dallas Cowboys. After losing Trayvon Diggs, releasing him and then having him go to the Packers, the cornerback room in Dallas has just looked really, really bad. Trevon Revel, a day 2 pick last season, did not really live up to the expectation going into year 1. Having Cam Taylor-Britt, who fits the mold of a really, really solid Dallas defender. He's your Deron Bland, your Trayvon Diggs, where he could let up a lot of yards, but he is going to make the big play when it counts. Only 8 games played in 2025 with 21 tackles and a tackle for loss. 5 passes defended in there is not too bad as well. But having Cam Taylor-Britt in there really can provide a nice spark, a nice little element to this Dallas Cowboys cornerback room. He's very versatile. He can play man, he can play zone. And his ball skills are really good as well. He had a really nice, solid interception a couple years back when targeting Patrick Mahomes. And his playmaking mentality really just supports the Cowboys' like turnover-driven defense, which I know we've seen in recent years. A guy like Deron Bland, who I mentioned, who really was nice picking off the ball. Trayvon Diggs, as I mentioned before, that 10 interception season or 9 whatever it was more than 7 for sure. But Taylor-Britt fits the mold of a Cowboy, fits the need at cornerback, and will be the next potentially cornerback 1 moving forward for Dallas. Another corner off the board to the Denver Broncos is Alontae Taylor from the New Orleans Saints. Adam here. Kind of forgot that Jahdae Barron was on this team as well. Former first-round pick in 2025. Dealt with some injuries. He'll probably play cornerback too alongside Patrick Surtain. Kind of forgot to take him into consideration. Probably isn't the best pick, knowing that now, but it's okay. It was tough to find really a true need for Denver. They could go wide receiver. I think they're going to figure it out with Marvin Mims, Pat Bryant still coming up, Troy Franklin. They still have guys that could really make a solid impact from the receiver room. When it comes to cornerbacks, you obviously have one of the best cornerbacks in the game, Patrick Surtain. Riley Moss, who in 2024 played really well. 2025, a little bit of a question mark. And then Jaquan McMillan, who led their team in interceptions in 2025, was a solid CB3. Taylor had a really good 2024 and a solid 2025 as well, being pretty much the cornerback 1 alongside Kool-Aid McKinstry in New Orleans. Adding a guy like Alontae Taylor into that defensive back room, when you pair him alongside, like I mentioned, Pat Surtain and Jaquan McMillan and Talanoa Hufanga and whoever else is in that defensive back room, it makes it scary for opposing quarterbacks because who are you going to throw to? If everyone's covered by a top 10 corner, then what are you going to do? It's tough to really say, but Alontae Taylor could really be a missing piece to that final puzzle, for a final missing piece to the puzzle for Denver to really get over the hump, keep everyone healthy, and then they could go to the Super Bowl very, very easily as long as they played up to the expectation they put on themselves in 2025. Next up, the Detroit Lions. They need help on the edge. You could have gone a lot of different options here, but if you want to save cheap and go with a guy who's been reliable, Hassan Reddick from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to be your guy. Only 13 games played for Hassan Reddick in 2025, but 31 tackles, 6 TFLs, 2.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. So when he was on the field, he was relatively productive. A second team All-Pro in 2022, Pro Bowls in 22 and 23. He also was the NFL forced fumbles co-leader in 2022, where he had, I believe, 5 or 6. Hassan Reddick is a proven player in this league. When he played for Philadelphia, when he played for all the other teams he played for in his past, he was productive. But Detroit's defense needs a running mate with Aiden Hutchinson, and Detroit defense really just needs a consistent edge like Reddick, who can really be a big pressure guy. He might be your second and third down pass rusher there. And he's just a proven sack artist. He can produce when it comes to sacks, when he's healthy, that is. And he just fits the aggressive attacking scheme that Detroit really loves. And pairing him with Aiden Hutchinson can free up both of those guys to really make a big impact on the defense. This is one of my favorite picks that I decided to make all for this video. Tyler Linderbaum to the Green Bay Packers, I feel like is one of the best decisions that you can make going forward as the Packers organization. As the Packers are really trying to find their new identity, they really have to go to the drawing board when it comes to offensive line. You have guys like Zach Tom and Elgton Jenkins, but Tyler Linderbaum could be a really solid option when it comes to anchoring that offensive line to really open up the holes for Jordan Love, who has been pretty mobile, a guy like Josh Jacobs, whoever else is in that backfield, Marshawn Lloyd, even some of the receivers on end arounds and whatnot. You could have him as a swing center, but he played very well in 2025, as he always does. 17 games played, 1,000 snaps, 99% of the total offensive snaps. The biggest kicker is 3 total penalties, which actually is not terrible for a center. Centers actually get called for some holding calls more frequently than you would think. But an all-rookie team member in 2022, and then a consistent Pro Bowler in 23, 24, and 25. Green Bay really just values interior linemen to anchor the young quarterbacks like Jordan Love. Linderbaum's athleticism, intelligence, and run blocking efficiency make him an ideal long-term center for the Packers offense. Next up, the Houston Texans. You can go a lot of different ways. They have some holes that they need to fill. That defense I stayed away from because their defense was insane in 2025. But Rico Dowdle is going to be the guy up. You have a pretty interesting running back room with Woody Marks, with Nick Chubb, with some other guys in there, Dario Gumbawale, British Brooks, is that his name? Whatever their running back for is, he's a practice squad guy either way, but 17 games played for Rico Dowdle, another 1,000-yard season where he had one with Dallas in 2024, 6 touchdowns and nearly 300 receiving yards, puts him up to about 1,400 scrimmage yards in total. Rico Dowdle's a little bit older at 27, 5'11", 215, but he is in his prime right now, really playing the best football he's really ever played in his life. Dowdle can really be a 1-2 punch with Woody Marks that I would like to see. He's a pretty reliable ball carrier, doesn't really fumble a whole lot. He's got good vision. His pass catching ability is nice with 300 yards there. And then also just complementing a spread-based offense that values running back versatility. You know, a guy like Joe Mixon might still be there, might not be there. Missed the whole 2025 season. That's kind of up in the air there. But adding Dowdle, who back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher, could be a nice 1-2 punch with Woody Marks going forward. Moving on to the Indianapolis Colts, you have Quay Walker. Age 25, 6'4", 241. Quay Walker is a really solid linebacker just in this league in general. 128 tackles only for 14 games, which is very impressive. 5 passes defended, 2.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, which I like to see from the linebacker. He is fitting the mold of the Colts defense really well, where they like to be physical, they like to be downhill tacklers. Quay Walker is that guy where he can really bring that physicality, bring that tackling ability that they can have with Zaire Franklin still. So having both of those guys either rotate or be on the field at the same time makes it tough to not only throw over the middle, but to run the ball if the running back gets past the second level there. So Quay Walker to the Indianapolis Colts, I love to see it. Moving on, the Jacksonville Jaguars going again with the defensive tackle. I liked Calais Campbell to Jacksonville again, but I just couldn't do it. I don't know why. Maybe I should have, but I like John Franklin Myers as a really solid option for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their defensive end room is stacked. They have Josh Hines Allen. They have Trayvon Walker, who former first round pick. So they have the guys on the edge, but it comes down to an interior defensive unit who maybe Franklin Myers will be for Jacksonville. I can't really tell what they're going to do with him, but they need help on the interior defensive line. It was solid in 2025, but they really can do a little bit better with it. 16 games played with 25 tackles, 7.5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. So having a guy like John Franklin Myers within the Jacksonville Jaguars, a guy who played for the Broncos more of a defensive end role, alongside Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper, Franklin Myers can really be a solid defensive unit, whether he move him into the interior defensive area or you keep him on the outside. He can be either a really good depth piece or a solid run defender going forward. Next up for the Kansas City Chiefs, you could go a lot of different ways. Running back was one that I really went back and forth with. I'm going to have him, spoiler for when I do the draft video, Jeremiah Love is going to be the guy that I really do target for Kansas City. I know it's really been the point of emphasis for the NFL draft in terms of the Chiefs team for a while now, but I really like what Romeo Doubs can provide to a Chiefs offense. Pairing him up with Patrick Mahomes would be really cool. Doubs, who I know has gone through a lot in his NFL career, really had a solid breakout year in 2025 with 6 touchdowns, 724 yards, off of only 55 catches, so not too bad of a season for Doubs, who is really competing with guys like Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, and a bunch of other wide receiver 2s and 3s in that Green Bay receiver room. I think that Doubs really can provide a solid spark to the offense that the Chiefs have. Like similarly to the Packers, the receivers for the Chiefs is kind of just a mix of anybody who wants to play for them. You have guys like Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquise Brown, a bunch of really interesting wide receivers that I just don't think fit the mold of what Doubs can provide to this offense. At 6'2", 204, he can be a solid deep threat, as well as a guy who can catch the ball 10 yards, 5 yards, whatever it is. He'll do whatever the offense needs of him, and I think adding Doubs into this receiver room can really be another solid weapon for the Kansas City Chiefs going forward. The Las Vegas Raiders need help everywhere. That is not an exaggeration, that is a fact. The biggest thing that I think that they need help with going forward, though, is offensive line. You can't address it in the draft. The offensive tackles and guards in this draft class have been pretty solid as far as I can tell, but having a guy like Braden Smith, a guy who's been really under the radar as an underrated tackle in this league, can really actually be a big help on both the left tackle and right tackle spot. Braden Smith, who played almost all of his career in Indianapolis, really helped anchor Jonathan Taylor's career, and just Quentin Nelson combining both of those really just made it better for the whole offense to work. Daniel Jones obviously played a factor in the Colts offense last season, but that offensive line was really a shining light when it comes to how good the Colts were at the beginning of the season last year. So I think adding a guy like Braden Smith, a 6'6", 312 tackle who played a lot of the offensive snaps for the Indianapolis Colts this season, I think would be really crucial to the success of the Raiders going forward. You obviously you're going to get a guy like Fernando Mendoza in the draft, but it won't really do much unless you don't have an offensive line to protect for him. That was why Ashton Jeanty didn't have a great season, because the offensive line couldn't run block. That's why Geno Smith didn't have a good season, because he was getting pressured and throwing interceptions, which might be Geno's fault anyway. But the point being is you need offensive line to really be able to pass block and run block effectively, and the Raiders just didn't have that last season. Braden Smith by himself is not going to be the solution to everything, but it's going to be one piece in the puzzle to really get them over the hump and compete in a tough AFC West division. Similarly to the Las Vegas Raiders, the LA Chargers are going to be looking for offensive line help as well. It sucked that Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt both went down with injury in the 2025 season. You had to get McDonald's workers and Walmart employees to really step in and be those left tackles and left guards there, especially when it came to the playoff game where Herbert was pressured almost on every play. Herbert did not have the best game. You can attribute it some to him, but you also can attribute that to the horrible offensive line play. So I think adding a guy like Joel Bitonio, who has really been a incredibly reliable and incredibly great player in this league for the Cleveland Browns, one of the shining spots for Cleveland for the past 10 years of when he's been playing there. 17 games played with almost 1,100 snaps, played every offensive snap for the Cleveland Browns in 2025, and only one penalty that was accepted on him. He is clean. He is reliable. He is a really solid guard. As you can tell by the awards, he has really had the trophies to show for how good he's really been. A first team and second team All-Pro, and just generally just a really solid player that can really anchor the running backs in LA, the quarterback Justin Herbert, Joel Bitonio to the LA Chargers to really round up a solid offensive line if healthy. Moving on to the LA Rams, they are going to be looking at Devin Lloyd as potentially their next starting linebacker in Jacksonville. Lloyd is a really solid player. He had a really solid game, a really solid season in 2025. In the beginning of 2025, I genuinely believe that he could have been the defensive player of the year. Through, I think, the first couple games, maybe 4 or 5 games, he had almost 3 or 4 interceptions, one of which was a 99-yard pick six. Lloyd played unbelievable in 2025 while only playing 15 games. At a 6'3", 235, he is your prototypical size linebacker who's going to be able to make tackles, who's going to be able to make plays on the football. As you can see, 5 interceptions total, 2 sacks, and he also has some accolades as well. Second team All-Pro in 2025 with the Pro Bowl in there as well. It doesn't really mean much now, but also an All-Rookie in 2022. Devin Lloyd is going to be your guy where he's a very athletic linebacker. He is a leader of men. He really led a really solid, a top 5 Jacksonville defense in 2025. And just overall his versatility, his play diagnosis, skills that fit defense where you can pair him up with Nate Landman. He can thrive and disguise and really make a huge impact going forward for the LA Rams in the 2026 season. Leonard Floyd is up next for the Miami Dolphins, and this one, I mean, you're really kind of getting in your bag here to try to find anybody who can really get to the quarterback because they were struggling in 2025. Leonard Floyd played 15 games for the Atlanta Falcons in 2025, 19 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and a pass defended. He is a veteran in this league through and through. At age 33, he's been on multiple teams like Chicago, with Buffalo, with LA Rams, where he won it in 2023. And so when you have a guy like Leonard Floyd within your system, it could be hit or miss. You could have a guy who can get a 10 and a half sack season like he did in Buffalo, or you could have a guy like Atlanta Falcons, Leonard Floyd, where he has 3.5 sacks, not necessarily contributing, but also not necessarily being the elite player that you hope to get out of a guy like Floyd. But Miami values speed off the edge. You saw that with Chad Robinson. You saw that with Jalen Phillips. And I think Floyd's ability just to pressure quarterbacks without blitz support really complements the defense in terms of its fast pace, its aggressiveness, and just the defensive identity that Miami's hoping to get back in 2026. So Leonard Floyd, I think, is going to be a really solid pickup as long as you get the prime Leonard Floyd that you want to see. If not, the Miami Dolphins are going to be what they are every year. A failure. Leonard Floyd could be a guy where you could get him for he could really be a difference maker on your defense, but he also can be a liability at some points. So it's going to be a hit or miss for Miami, but you hope to get the best out of a guy as he's getting older in age and probably set to retire within the next couple of years. As I mentioned with Jamel Dean in the Arizona Cardinals, Jalen Thompson is going to be the guy that I like to see with Minnesota. They needed safety help. Harrison Smith is most likely gone. You have to pair a guy up with Josh Metellus, who played pretty well in 2025, but that defensive back room, it just needs help desperately. And I think you could really get corner in the draft. You can get like Jamard McCoy, Mansour Delane, Avion Terrell, some other guys mixed in there, but Thompson, 15 games played, 95 tackles, a sack, forced fumble, 2 tackles for loss, passes defended up to the number 6. Minnesota needs stability in their secondary. Harrison Smith, like I mentioned, will probably be gone. but Thompson's coverage range and communication skills when he was with Buda Baker helped anchor that Cardinals defense for so long. And I think just having him be a big part of the Minnesota Vikings defense going forward, when you pair him up with just the whole defense as itself, with the defensive linemen, with the linebackers, with the other defensive backs, he can lead, he can show what the defense needs to be successful. And overall, he can be a difference maker in terms of turnovers and just in terms of reliability at the position. Next up for the New England Patriots, and I love having K'Lavon Chase on there for New England. I don't know if he'll be re-signed. You got to make room for a guy like Odafe Oweh, who played for both the Chargers and for the Ravens in 2025. When he was with the Ravens, he was terrible. He did not play up to the hype as a first-round pick. But when he moved to LA for the Chargers, he turned it on. He got all of his 7.5 sacks when he went to the Chargers. And overall, it just looked like a much different player. It really gives the idea that maybe it's not always the player that's bad, but it's the scheme that the team runs, or trying to find a role for somebody who did something different in college or whatever it may be. Odafe Oweh found something different in LA and really made a big difference when it came to the Chargers. Didn't unfortunately do much to get far in the playoffs, but when he was on the field during the regular season, he was a very big part of this defense, who had an injured Khalil Mack, who obviously lost Joey Bosa last season to Buffalo. There was a lot of factors into why the Chargers were not successful last season. Odafe was not one of them. Odafe will find a new spot sometime soon within this offseason, and I think that he will be successful whichever way he goes. Just hopefully it's a team that follows the same scheme as the LA Chargers. Now, this is one of my favorite ones because I love seeing Breece Hall go outside of the AFC East. Breece Hall to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints desperately need a new starting quality running back. Alvin Kamara is getting old. You don't know what his position is going to look like. Kendre Miller, I just don't see as your running back of the future. Breece Hall, who is still incredibly young at 5'11", 217. He's got the speed, he's got the size, and he's got the reliability as well with 16 games played, 1,000 yards and 350 yards. I put one of his awards as one of two players that looked good for the Jets last season, because there really was only two. It was Breece Hall and then it was Garrett Wilson when he was healthy. But having New Orleans pick up Breece Hall is really going to be a solution to that running back room that really just did not play well for the Saints in 2025. I think maybe pairing him up with another quality running back too could really be a nice 1-2 piece. I couldn't tell you who that would be off the top of my head. But Breece Hall to the New Orleans Saints, I love. Could really provide a new spark and take some pressure off of Tyler Shuck, who will be starting his sophomore season. You hope that he'll still be successful in 2026. But Breece Hall to the New Orleans Saints could be a dangerous move for New Orleans. The New York Giants, what do they need? A whole lot of something. Deebo Samuel, I like. I think that Samuel really is a different type of receiver. I remember back when he was a Pro Bowler and a first-team All-Pro, he mentioned that he calls his position a wide back, which is kind of weird, but the idea is he can be a wide receiver and a running back as well. When he was with San Francisco, he was lined up in the backfield a lot. Similarly with Washington, he had some plays where he lined up in the running back slot, but he was also a really good returner as well, where he had some kickoff returns, we had some good punt returns as well. But 16 games played, 72 catches for nearly 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. I like the idea of having Samuel in this offense with the New York Giants. Malik Neighbors is your prototypical X, where he's going to go up and get the ball. He's going to be your deep threat. Not to say that Samuel can't do all of those things, but I think the skill set and the archetype that Samuel brings to the Giants wide receiver room could be a nice change of pace for a team that's really been looking for receivers anywhere and everywhere. Samuel as this solid wide receiver too, especially if Wan'Dale Robinson leaves, could be a really solid piece to add for the New York Giants as they're looking for either wide receiver in free agency or in the draft. Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemons are all the guys that you really start to look for in the NFL draft, but having a guy like Samuel as your gadget running / wide receiver, I love it, and I think it'll be really nice for him. The New York Jets, this is going to be the only quarterback that I have on this list, and I think it's the one with the biggest, highest upside. Malik Willis from Green Bay, formerly with the Tennessee Titans, had a really solid 2025 season. Only played 4 games in the regular season, but he had nearly 600 yards of total offense between his passing and his rushing stats. Also on there, a 3-0 touchdown to interception ratio. He played out of his mind when he was the starter in Green Bay with Jordan Love went down to injury. Taking a gamble on Malik Willis is not the highest risk thing ever. I think it's low risk, high reward. Maybe you draft a guy like Ty Simpson in either the first round or a day 2 pick. Malik Willis, I think, has potential to be a really solid starter in this league. Maybe not franchise level quarterback, but Malik Willis has done everything to impress NFL teams, NFL players, of course the fans as well. So New York Jets could really get a guy like Malik Willis to be your bridge guy or the solution. You never know with the New York Jets. They can really find diamond in the rough in any player just because everyone else on their team sucks. So any team, any player that might be just mid can actually be your best player. So New York Jets, Malik Willis, I like it. We're almost done. We're making it through. Kyle Pitts to the Philadelphia Eagles. This was my dream fit. If Kyle Pitts is able to make it to Philadelphia, leave Atlanta, I think this team is insane if that happens. At age 25, 6'6", 250, he is your prototypical size for tight end, even a little bit taller than the average in the NFL, but 17 games played, 88 catches, nearly 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. He has improved his touchdown counter pretty much since he's been in the league. I think he's projected to maybe get 6 in 2026 based on his, kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe. But the idea is that Kyle Pitts can really add a different spark to this offense that Dallas Goedert can necessarily do, but he's just tremendously, I would say, more athletic than Dallas Goedert. And I think comparing him up with AJ Brown, if he sticks around, with Jahan Dotson, with Devontae Smith, and just providing another really solid pass catcher in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, it's like, you could really throw it to anybody on the field and they have the ability to make a play. If Philadelphia does that, they keep their defense around, they definitely have the potential to make it to the Super Bowl, maybe even win it again like they did in 2024, but Kyle Pitts to the Philadelphia Eagles would be the dream. The Pittsburgh Steelers go with Greg Newsome, the cornerback from Jacksonville, formerly with the Cleveland Browns, got traded mid-season, but at age 25, 6 foot, 192. He's got decent size for a corner. 17 games played amidst the 2 teams, 52 tackles, a pick when it's coming from Jacksonville, 2 sacks, 9 passes defended, and 2 tackles for loss. You have guys like Joey Porter Jr., who has been pretty much your cornerback 1. Jalen Ramsey, who transitioned from corner to safety. He pretty much did that. I don't know if it's really official, but the depth chart says he's a safety now. So having a guy like Greg Newsome, who has played in the AFC North before, I think would be actually a pretty solid running mate with Joey Porter Jr. Having Greg Newsome be your solid, reliable cornerback too could actually be a really solid piece for Pittsburgh. You have Joey Porter Jr., you have Jalen Ramsey, but pairing Greg Newsome with Joey Porter, who both really have solid speed, solid length, solid mobility, could be a really solid addition to your team going forward. This one I like. I like it and I hate it. Joey Bosa to the 49ers would be interesting to say the least. At age 30, 6'5", 280, he's got good speed, but man, it's a tough one for Joey Bosa to leave Buffalo. After the season, he had 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 5 forced fumbles, which, as you can see, was the forced fumbles leader in 2025. Joey Bosa is pretty friggin' crazy, but pairing him up with Nick Bosa would be sweet. I will say it. I believe he might have had some intention to play with the 49ers in 2025. Didn't work out where he signed with Buffalo, but Joey Bosa to the 49ers just makes sense even outside of his brother being there. Like Michael Williams, as much as I like him as a player, I think that he still has time to develop. Having Joey Bosa in there could be another piece where you can start Bosa as your three down guys, and then maybe have Michael Williams stint into the defensive tackle spot. But overall, Joey Bosa and the San Francisco 49ers make sense. The 49ers need help with the pass rush, especially if Nick Bosa goes down with injury, Michael Williams goes down with injury. You're relying on other guys there that just really can't make plays like that. So Joey Bosa to the 49ers, just add some more depth, add some more rotation. Really could be a big solution to the defense in 2026. We're getting to the end here, but sheesh, this is a crazy one. Coming off a Super Bowl victory, they had almost everything except for a really prominent pass rush. Like, I like a guy like Derek Hall. I like a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence, who's getting older in age. But if you add a guy like Trey Hendrickson to your team, only 7 games played, but 4 sacks, 16 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble, having a guy like Trey Hendrickson on your lineup playing games for you for a team who likes to win and just won the Super Bowl, I think that would be absolutely insane. You know how insane that offense already is, but if you add a guy like Hendrickson, pair him up with Derek Hall or Uchenna Nwosu or DeMarcus Lawrence if he sticks around, would be absolutely unreal. Trey Hendrickson, as we know, has been looking for a new contract with Cincinnati for a while now. I believe he got franchise tagged or some other thing that made him stick around for a year or two, but Trey Hendrickson would be incredible for the Seattle Seahawks, and if this happens, it might break the NFL. Trey Hendrickson to the Seahawks would be crazy. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers now with Quincy Williams, who I actually really like this decision. Tampa Bay has been looking for linebacker now. I know in the 25 draft, they were looking for Jahad Campbell. They had the chance to get him, but they took Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. Quincy Williams is going to be your guy where he comes in 18 games played with 83 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 7 passes defended. So both of the Williams boys are going to be leaving New York as Quinnen Williams left midseason to the Dallas Cowboys. I think that just in general, Tampa Bay just needs linebacker. You don't really have a guy who who has sat behind Devin White and can step up to that role from what I can see. I mean, the defensive line looks okay. You have a guy like Yaya Diaby who's coming up. You have a guy like, of course, Vita Vea, who's been a dominant force for a couple of years now. Kalijah Cansey, who still has time to develop, but has been looking really solid. I think that overall, adding Quincy Williams to that linebacker room I think it would be really a solid piece that they've been looking for at least a year now, that they've needed, especially when it comes to late season. I mean, they had a really solid year with the help of Baker Mayfield and that offense, but Quincy Williams to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers makes a lot of sense. He fits a nice frame that the Buccaneers look for, and overall, Quincy Williams very well could be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer in 2026. Moving on to the Tennessee Titans. This is our second to last one. We have Rashid Shaheed, the wide receiver formerly with the Seattle Seahawks. I think if you're Tennessee here, you want to give Cam Ward anything and everything to help make the team win, whether that be O-linemen, whether that be running backs, or in this case, it'd be a wide receiver. At age 27, 6 foot 180, he is a speed demon, undrafted from the New Orleans Saints. He had nearly 700 yards of passing offense, but one of his biggest strengths that it really was shown in the postseason was his punt return and kick return ability, as he had 2 punt return and kick return touchdowns total in the 2025 season. You have a guy like Chimere Dike for the Tennessee Titans, but you could split those guys up, make either Dike a full-time receiver, make Rashid Shaheed a full-time receiver, or have them both be returning punts and kicks. That would be insane for the Tennessee Titans. But I mean, you look at the receiver room now with Elik Iomanner, with Xavier Restrepo, with Chimere Dike, Rashid Shaheed, maybe Calvin Ridley. It doesn't look terrible, but I think adding Rashid Shaheed won't necessarily get you to the finish line, but it definitely is one step closer to getting to that point. last but not least, David Njoku to the Washington Commanders. Commanders are set to lose Zach Ertz in free agency. I think adding a guy like Njoku, who has been really solid in both the general passing game, where he didn't have the greatest season in 2025, but in previous years went for 500, 600 yards, maybe. Njoku himself is a good blocker as well. So, I mean, Washington was about mid-range when it came to pass protection, but adding Njoku, who is just a unit, by the way, an absolute freak show. He can really just provide another piece to this Washington Commanders team where you don't have to try to target Terry McLaurin every time. You don't have to try to run the ball. You can try to dump it out to Njoku, and he'll probably get you 5, 6, however many yards you're looking for there. But overall, adding another tight end who might be, I would say, is an upgrade from Zach Ertz, I think could be a really solid option, and just in general might be the next big piece for the Commanders. How's it going, guys? Completely forgot to do an outro for this video. Just want to let you know that liking and subscribing will be a huge help to help grow the channel. This is my first YouTube video, and just any support at all, we greatly appreciate it. Thanks.